Heyo folks, Plastic Eric here, Plastic Soundwave Cult, here for another exciting edition of Collection Connection. The game is just an excuse to talk about music. It's a game I play currently. The way the game works is Mondays I will do a video about one of these albums in my collection, and then Bryce will find a tentative connection to that album in my collection. And on Thursday on Good Show Ponsonby, he will show an album, and then from there on, I will find a connection to that album, and then I will pick one of these albums in my collection and connect it to that album. We've been doing that every Monday and Thursday for a while now. We might be changing it up here real soon. We've just been talking about it. It's about 98% set. I just don't want to say anything too much before we make sure we have it all ironed out perfectly. I thought about it. I was going to announce it fully today, but changes are coming. And hopefully you'll dig those changes. But I don't want to say them quite yet, just to make sure that I got everything correct. So with that, the last connection that my brother talked about was between Anti-Nowhere League and Veronica Falls. And the connection is both of those bands have a song on these albums that state the name of their band on the album. Or the song has the name of the band in the song. And the person who guessed that correctly was Digital Gramophone. Look down in the link for a link, or look down in the description for a link to John's channel. That's John over the Digital Gramophone. He just did a great video about seeing Weezer live, and I think about taking his kid too, but I'm not positive. But it was cool to see the show that Weezer put on to celebrate the Blue album. So if you get a chance, check out John's channel, and let's try to figure out what I thought of Veronica Falls. So the last album that my brother talked about was Veronica Falls, debut album. I found this to be quite good. If I was to compare it to other bands, I would say there's a little bit of New Order, but that early New Order where they still kind of sounded like Joy Division, but weren't quite like Joy Division. Makes me think of Susie and the Banshees, but not the vocals, not Susie's vocals. She has a much lower register when she sings, whereas this girl has a much higher one. But the music itself behind the voice definitely has like this smoother, polished, more polished kind of Susie and the Banshee sound. Along the lines of like when they did Cities in the Dust, Peekaboo, those kind of songs. I know that at least two of the singles on this were I Fell in Love in a Graveyard and Beachy Head. I watched those videos as well. I found the whole album to be pretty good. I listened to it on Spotify, and Spotify suggested one of the songs from their next album, which I didn't find that song to be half bad either. And so, yeah, it's kind of like that sad but getting through it kind of British feel to it, which is weird because I really never listened to Veronica Falls before, and I thought for some reason they were American, and actually Bryce thought that they might have been Canadian. And so it was a big surprise to me that they were actually English. And so overall I really enjoyed that album. You probably wonder one if I saw it and it was a reasonable price, I have no problem picking it up. But what did I connect that to? And so the album that I connected to Veronica Falls from Bryce's video was an album that when it first came out, I didn't necessarily appreciate it that much. It was a band that came out while we my brother and I and our family lived in England. And I remember listening to it on the bus and thinking it sounds pretty cool. But in those days, you didn't say that you liked the English stuff on the American bus. You know, you liked all the American bands that were on the English charts. And so, but I always did like the sound of the singer's voice. I think it's one of the best out there. I think I did a video a long time ago, like one of my very early videos, where I talked about how great I felt that this singer's voice was. And the music that her and her partner did on this, and I say partner not in a marriage way, but in a business way, a musical band way, paired beautiful, soulful vocals with really cool synthesizers and drum machines. And I'm sure it was done before, but it's the earliest that I can remember, and that would be Yazoo, Upstairs at Eric's. Now, you might think, hey, Eric, I think I know why you're partial to that album. And isn't it funny how the connection last week was the name of the band was in one of the songs on the album, and now I'm doing a video with my name in the video. I'm telling you, dude, there's so many dimensions in this universe, it's hard to explain. But setting that aside, what a fantastic album. What made me appreciate this album was the fact that I think it was the December of 1988, where I was still living in the dorms at San Diego State. I had a job. I couldn't just traipse on home and say, hey, I'm going to take, the winter break off from work. I still needed that job, so I had to stay in San Diego instead of coming back home. And so my cousin was kind enough to let me stay at his house. And it was interesting because he didn't have cable at the time. It wasn't a common thing necessarily. But he did have the, Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS. I remember watching CBS Sunday Morning. That's how I got hooked on that show when I was a kid. Or a youngster, I guess. Really a kid in those days. I was 19. And I could only watch so much TV and get, bored of it. And he said it was okay if I listened to some of his records that he had there by his record player. And most of them I wasn't necessarily that interested in. But this one, I saw and I thought, oh, I remember them. Of course, in England, they're Yazoo. Here in the States, they're just called Yaz. And listen to that album over and over and over again. I could probably quote every line on this album, no problem, without even thinking about it. Like it's second nature. Because, when I got bored, I just listened to this. I got to know this album really good over that winter break. And it wasn't too long that I got this CD back then to listen to it whenever I wanted. And I still go back to this album. I think some of these songs on here are fantastic. What is it? Is it Bad Connection? It's Bad Connection. The third song. It's one of my favorite synth songs. I mean, that's such a catchy tune. Of course, the hits from this, Only You, Don't Go. On this one here, it has Situation. I believe the track was called Tuesday on the English version. The American version, I don't know if it originally came out the same as the English, but definitely the reissues later on down the road, instead of the song Tuesday, had the song Situations, which is a single that they had put out around this time. And so they, as America tends to do, stack the album with the hits. And if there's a different track list from the English or European version, they check the songs that they don't care for that much. And so I think the one song on here that probably Bryce would chuck on here is I before C or I before E except after C. And, you know, I get it why he doesn't like it. He likes his melody. He likes his harmony. He likes his traditional tropes in his music. He definitely has a sound, and that song ain't it. And again, for me, I think it's their version of Revolution 9 or Hearts. I forgot what it's called, Rock and Roll Melody or something like that, where it's just a series of sounds that are put together. I think they do a really good job of it. It's one of those songs where I get it if people don't like it, but some people just like that stuff. And if you can't see the difference, and if you can't see the difference, then I can't help you. But yeah, I am taking up way too much of your time right now. So if you think you know how you can connect Veronica Fall's first album to Yazoo or Yaz Upstairs at Eric's album, you could get a shout out on Bryce's next video. And he might go into a little bit more detail about what some of these changes are going to be. We're trying to do it slowly, but it's going to happen real quick if it happens, which is most likely going to happen. So just be prepared. And hopefully in the meantime, you can figure out